Janea, welcome to Growing Pains. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. Oh,
Oh my gosh. Well, can I just say, I am so honored to have you on the show and to talk with you through some of the, honestly, like watching like very early stage and exciting success of your brand new business. You've got two little girls at home. So for everybody listening, let's like acclimate them and
yeah.
have them get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about Mother and Cub and your family at home.
I have started this business literally within the last year. So I have two little girls. They're 4 and almost 2, and my husband of 6 years now. So my husband and your husband are cousins. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Mother and Cub started basically, we launched in December of 2024. So we've been in business less than 2 months, and it's been a whirlwind. I cannot believe that traction happened so fast on social media, but people are just as excited as I am. It's been such a blessing that way.
Well, you really do have an incredible product. And I also have to say that you have a knack for content creation on Instagram. Like it's very, very clear. I mean, like it's just so joyful to follow along with you. And I think like, it's tough to start a business. And like a lot of folks talk about the tough finding your market and getting the product right and all the other things. But like the toughest part is actually just showing up and like being you and being open and all of that stuff. So talk to me. How was that? How has that been over the last year?
Yeah, so the products I'm promoting are diaper bags, they're crossbody diaper bags. And the niche market of finding a large enough crossbody diaper bag that has enough space in a spot for like an insulated bottle pocket and large enough to fit an entire container of wipes, I could not find that in the market. So I decided to make it. And then lo and behold, other people are like, hey, I actually need that too. And so being able to appeal to that specific niche has been really interesting because people are like, I've been wanting this for so long and I literally could not find it.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for bringing this to the table. And it's one of those things where you leave the house with a newborn and you feel like you need all the things all the time. And obviously, there's a lot more that can go into that whole conversation. But when you switch gears to toddler life, your whole mindset changes in so many ways that you're just like, yes, getting out of the house is actually really important for all of our mental health. So let's create a product that makes
Mhm.
that journey a lot easier.
I think like getting out is so hard when you've got the kids and you've got a thousand things to put together. And by the time you pack the bag and all the snacks and get the milk into the cooler bag and all that stuff, it almost kind of feels like it's time then for baby to eat again. So then
Yeah.
you like
Yeah,
don't leave.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's
The
so
change
hard.
outfits and all the things. It's like you still need space.
Mhm.
I don't need a gigantic backpack.
I remember when we were, pregnant with Frank, we got one of those big Dane Dover, like, backpacks because I was like, "Well, at least if it's a backpack, I'm hands-free," and it felt like it had all the things,
Mhm.
and I will say that I'm a firm believer, like, you grow into the space that you have, and so we ended up with, like, so much crap in our diaper bag, like, it was out of control, and then switching to like 2 toddlers rolling around, it was basically just they took over my purse. Like, whatever I was carrying, I also had, like, the diapers and the change of clothes and the snacks and all the things inside of the bag, and so then it was like I had my purse that I really love, and then there's, like, Cheerios crusted
Right.
over in my bag.
And then,
Like,
like,
not happy about that.
they create the most funny marital arguments because you'll be like, "Go in this pocket on the left-hand side with the zipper on the front," and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah.
That is so true. I can't even recall how many times I'm, like, trying to describe the pocket that something's in, and Steve is just like, "What are you talking about?"
"I know you're not directionally challenged. Work with me here. I need this."
Oh my god, I love that. So how like, what was, like, the real, I guess, like, story behind starting Mother and Cub? So you wanna make it easier for folks to get outside, like, you saw this product gap in the market, and I can imagine too that there was probably a lot going on behind the scenes, like, for you and your family as you were kind of navigating those early stages postpartum with your 2 girls.
Absolutely. So the backstory behind it is kind of starting from the postpartum trenches. My first daughter, I was hit severely hard with postpartum anxiety and depression. And I did what any person in the middle of the night does. I online shop like crazy. And for some reason, I was so drawn to finding a bag that made me feel like getting out of the house was gonna be less daunting, and so I just bought and I bought and I bought, and it didn't matter what I was putting my hope into in a bag, which sounds ridiculous, but I was literally like, "Can this help me get through the day better?" And nothing did.
Mm,
And so when my second daughter was born, my husband joked. He was like, "You should just make your own bag, Janae. Like, you know what you want. Why is this so complicated? Like, just make it." And I'm like,
mm,
there's no part of my brain that can comprehend doing any of that right now. Like,
mm,
I'm a nurse. I have no experience doing anything in the business world. I was brought up in the mindset of you work your dream job of a 9 to 5, you come home every night, and this is the world that you want to live in. And so
mm,
I in Craig's brain, my husband is just so wired the opposite, and he does projects, he does entrepreneurial things, and I love that about him. But there came a crossroads in our marriage about a year ago, and we were like, how are we going to pursue something together that we can both be happy with, that I need to be passionate about, and how to change my mindset on being a mompreneur? Because I knew that if it was going to be something that we did together, I would need to take the bulk of the creative of it all because he's not
mm.
brain to work that way. So we just went through all the ideas, the brick and mortar, the e-commerce, the products, and for whatever reason, everything came up short. And so Craig was like, "Just do the diaper bag, Janae. You know you can do it." And by that point in the journey, I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to do this." I have no idea where to start, so I guess I'm going to Google how do you make your own diaper bag. And I started the whole process of finding manufacturers and creating samples and going down the journey of like, it ended up being a self-help journey more than anything because I completely changed my entire heart posture towards being a mom and being an entrepreneur, that you can have everything that you want. You just have to create the world that you want to live in. And
Mm.
it's like raining blessings left and right. The more that we poured into this journey, the more fruitful it became. And I honestly had even a year ago, I'm just like, I could cry thinking about how far I've come, and I'm so proud because now my babies watch me work, and my husband gets to see me like actually be happy and be creative, and like the social media of it all is so, putting my face online was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. But now it's like,
Mm.
wait to do this. It's been so cool.
Isn't it incredible, like, how much can change in such a short period of time?
Yeah.
And, like, I really do believe that business ownership is, like, one of the biggest endeavors in personal development that you can go through, and I think motherhood is the same. It's just really, really tough, I think, because motherhood feels almost sometimes like you aren't in control, right? Like you're, serving your babies and you're serving your family and whatever it is that they need. But then business ownership has this really interesting way. Of course, the business has needs, right? Like I have a background very strong in operations. I'm like, of course, businesses need stuff,
Yeah.
but it really feels like you can kind of write in your own ecosystem, right? Your own reality of how things can operate. So it's incredible to see, like, quickly how far this has come and that the girls are such a part of that. How has it been like weaving them into the business a little bit?
It's been so wonderful, but also incredibly stressful for me because I do wanna have full control over what's going on because I still feel like I'm getting my bearings, but trying to
Mm,
incorporate them in a way that's, like, healthy for me and healthy for them is a daily process. Because like, my oldest is 4, she's, like, starting to pick up on reading skills, and she wants to be involved in the packaging process, and seeing her spark for me being happy, like, it makes her happy, and
mhm.
I don't wanna diminish that sparkle at all, but I also am like, "Hey, mommy needs a minute to think," you know? I don't know what I'm doing either.
I think sharing that with the kids is also really great. I remember there was a gal we had on the pod a couple of years ago, and she was saying that oftentimes she would tell her 4-year-old, like, "Hey, this is mommy's first time with a 4-year-old, so, like, just give me a minute, like, I'm thinking through it," kinda thing. And I think it's fun too because it gives our kids, I don't know, call it the permission, but the permission to not have it all figured out, right? Because I think when you look at your parents, and I found this out when I became a mom too, you just think your parents had it all figured out. And then you like get older or you become a parent yourself and you're like, oh, actually, a lot of things that y'all did made a lot more sense to me. And now I know that you didn't have it all figured out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And for her, it's like she's like me. She has like a a drive to just want to be involved and do and be. And it's so
Mm.
it's exciting to watch, and I don't want to ever burst that bubble for her. But I'm also like, I have to create my own sparkle in this situation. So just like, yeah, like you said, give me a minute, and I need to get better at like vocalizing that to her, because sometimes I just want to shut it down. Whenever I get too overstimulated, I shut down, and I need to definitely get better at that. But obviously, it's a process. I've only been doing this a little bit, and I want to show her that even if this business wasn't to succeed, it's still okay to try and fail.
Totally. I think that is such a beautiful thing to point out, Janae, because I think a lot of what we see, whether that be like on the highlight reel on Instagram or when we share about things, it's mostly the successes, not necessarily the failures. And so I know when we got together just a few months ago in Texas, we were talking about like all of the product that you went through to get to the one that you have now. And so it's so incredible to even think about just the process itself. All of those failures were very required for you to have the incredible product that's now spreading like wildfire, today.
It's too one of those things where you're like, I don't know if this is actually where I'm supposed to be. I don't know if this is right. And then milestone after milestone happens, and you're just like, wow, I am called to be here. This is incredible. Like
Mm.
everything is happening just as it's more than it's supposed to. There are days that nothing happens, but then like I'll get an email collab, or there are days where there's a sale, but I won't get a response on an email. It's like give and take. You're getting wins, you're having minor wins, micro wins, whatever you want to call them, but it's still a win. It's still a win.
Yeah.
That's enough to keep me going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to take it one day at a time. Like, I think we've helped over the years a ton with like strategic planning, whether that be for general business growth or for maternity leave planning or any of that stuff. And a lot of women will come in and they'll be like, well, I want to plan my business for the next 5 years. And I'm like, that is so unrealistic, especially when you're in the early stages of startup, or maybe you only have a couple of teammates, or you're still kind of trying to figure some things out. Like thinking a year in advance, you're just going to fill up the anxiety well, and you're going to be really, really attached to this thing and not open to the possibility of things being better than maybe even you can fathom in your brain about how great it's going to be or whatever that's going to look like. So I think, how has that been for you? Like, have you been, I don't know, scared about like not having a full like year-long plan, taking things day by day? Are you somewhere in the middle?
I think there's beauty in being naive. Since I've literally gone into this with nothing and no experience, the idea of me even planning 3 months in advance seems so daunting, because I'm at the point now where everything's changing so fast. So if I were to give myself even the grace of planning 3 months in advance, I think that that would also cause a large part of my type A anxiety to be like, well, if you don't hit that, you're really going to feel like crap. And I don't want to give
Yeah.
myself that pressure, because at this point in the game, when the micro win comes that next day, that's just enough to keep me going forward. So that's where I'm standing for the next foreseeable future, because I don't want to give myself the ability to get let down from a threshold that I made for myself.
Mm. And you and Craig and the girls, y'all are the only like folks in the business, right? So y'all don't have any help at this moment, right?
No, it's just us. And I mean, the bags are coming in, and I'm quality controlling all of them. Craig is helping me trim up any loose threads or whatever it may be, because
Mm.
we're trying to make the most of the time that we have with the girls when he gets home from work. And then when they go to bed, we kind of take over the business side. And whenever the girls are at school during the day and Craig's at work, I'm here trying to do the social media and trying to keep all the balls in the air at one time. But it's amazing how, when you feel stuck in the trenches of motherhood and then you're given a project that has nothing to do with motherhood, how much life can come back into your brain. And you're not selfish. I had to convince myself I am not selfish.
Mhm.
Good thing, because it's given me a purpose so much more than the purpose that I craved for so long for being a mother. They're both blessings. You can have both. You have two hands that you can do both.
I 100% agree. And I think a lot of the rhetoric around being a business owner and being a mom is that you do have to choose, right? You have to choose whether you're going to be present, you have to choose whether you're going to grow your business. And I think if we lean into the seasonality of life, there are going to be seasons where, just like you're doing right now, you're working in the evenings, you're working while the kids are at school. on the thing that you want to build. There's a season for building, and then there's going to be a season where, maybe you guys decide to take a month off and go vacation with the girls and you're mother first for that season. I think embracing the seasonality of life is really incredible, because I think a lot of the balance that we're fed, like as moms, is we have to spend exactly the same amount of time being a mom as we do on the business, or we care about the business more than we care about the kids.
Or yeah. And there's so much guilt wrapped around that whole thing. And it's only the guilt if you're allowing it in. If you can say to yourself, like, I'm not a bad mom for putting the needs of what I feel is most important that day first, it's okay. I mean, the next day is a new day. You can have different needs.
Yeah, the guilt is tough, because I think that the guilt is just as natural as the sun rising. Like, I really do think the guilt isn't going to go away. I think it's what we do with the second thought. So one of my coaches, like a long time ago, he's like, you can't control your first thought, but you can control your second thought. And I thought that was really, really empowering for me, particularly because I was like, look, the guilt's going to come in. The negative self-talk is going to come in. The anxiety is going to come in. It's just, that's how my brain is wired. It's the second thought. So I didn't spend enough time with the kids today is the first thought. The second thought is, well, I have a pretty open day tomorrow, right? So like, that feels, I think, a little bit more approachable than some of the challenges with like eliminating mom guilt. It's like, I don't think we're ever going to eliminate mom guilt. I mean, it's just sometimes how we're wired.
Yeah. And there are like tiers of guilt that you have to sift through as it comes. So like me being a stay-at-home mom with my first kid, I wanted to do it all and I felt like I couldn't ask for help. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm asking for a babysitter one day a week, and there's guilt with that. And then you move on and you're like, okay, let's send my kid to school. I'm still not a bad mom, even though I feel like I am. And you just got to process as it comes, because what's best for your family 6 months ago isn't going to be what's best for them now.
And the same is true for your business, right? Like, I think it's really incredible to have both sides, because you can really work out some of the delegation challenges. For example, like, I was speaking with a mom, she's got a 4-month-old little girl at home, her first little girl, and she's had a really great thriving health business for years. And I told her, I was like, hey, listen, the same process to delegate something that you really care about in your business is the same process to delegate and have your nanny come in one day a week and support with the baby's needs. And so you almost give yourself that like trial run inside of the business or inside of motherhood. Same thing, putting yourself out there, stepping into your self-confidence. You did that when you became a mom. And now you can do it in your business and have like a different creative outlet. So I love how they complement each other. And I actually don't fundamentally believe that business ownership and motherhood are at odds.
I think that the only person that you're going to talk to who believes that is a person not in entrepreneurial aspects of life. You're just going to meet moms who do
Yes.
it. And people who experience both have such different mindsets. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah. I've actually found the motherhood and entrepreneur like community to be some of the most welcoming women and supportive women in
Oh,
just
yes. 1,000 times, yes. For people who have come into my community online, I've never met any group of people more supportive in my entire life, because there's obviously mom shaming everywhere, and you're never going to get
yes.
from that. But these women, they just want to see you succeed. They just want to be there for you, and it's incredible. And I'm like, if I come in contact with another person, another mompreneur, whoever it is, I hope I can be that light for you, because by golly, this has been unreal. And it just shows you that you are so not alone in every stage of motherhood that you can be in, whether an entrepreneur or not. Like, there are other people in your corner.
Yeah, 100%. And there's always someone who understands, or, you know what I mean? Like someone who can really empathize with what you're going through. I also found the general motherhood community to be somewhat unsupportive, somewhat, I don't want to say like putting down your dreams, but definitely more riddled with judgment and guilt and all those types of things. Have you come up against naysayers so far in your entrepreneurial journey?
Thankfully, not a ton, but I will say that the stay-at-home mom community online, it's a very specific group of women who, they feel like if you're not following the structure of like your home and your children are put first every single day, and you being the owner and runner of your home in that regard, like that's the hierarchy. That's the most important. What they're forgetting to remember is that it's not what's best for every family, and then pushing their values on other people online, it does become less welcoming. And It's almost more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of, you know how consumer culture just wraps you up and you just feel like you have to have the thing that everybody's talking about? It's kind of like that
Mhm.
mom culture. You're like, I have to have this and then my life will be perfect. But in reality, not everyone's life is fit for that. And you just have to
Yeah.
experience that on your own.
It's tough. I think to me, sometimes when I experience like the stay at home mom culture, and I spend a lot of time with our kids. Like I run two companies. I only work 2.5 sometimes days a week. Sometimes I can't help like a nap time email or 10. That's not a big deal. But the majority of my week is spent with my family. And I think the thing that I kind of reconciled with as of like 2 years ago when that wasn't the case, I was working 4 days a week full time, like 8 to 5. It was actually really, really tough for me to, like, switch gears and go back to being, like, majority of the time with the kids because I was like, "Oh, productivity is gonna suffer, and I'm gonna not move as fast, and I'm not gonna be as dialed in to what the business needs," and all those different things, and so, I think, again, embracing that seasonality of there might be a time where you really just wanna be with the kids. You might not be running any promotions, you might just put your ads on autopilot, you might just go to the beach for a couple of weeks. But then there's this like piece of it, I think, where when you want something that is a creative outlet for you and your family doesn't feel like it, I really do believe that you show up as a better mother and as a higher level home care
Wow.
when you feel satiated in that creative outlet, you know?
Yeah, I do. I get everything you're saying is like, yes, absolutely. Well, it's refreshing to feel like you're literally hearing verbatim what you're thinking in your head. And but it's okay if other people don't necessarily understand it because like for me, I'm doing something that literally no one has done around me. I cannot find
Mhm.
a person who has done what I am doing in this e-commerce creating a product space. It's very niche in the world, but especially niche in our area. And so
Mhm.
in the beginning, when you tell people your ideas, it's like you got to do it cautiously and take their responses with a grain of salt because it's most of them are going to be naysayers. But in your heart, you have to know that you're doing what's right for your family. And if you feel good about it, then go for it.
I totally agree with you. I think too, like I often believe that folks' responses are less about me and more about them. I've learned that I think over the last almost 10 years of working for myself and doing all of the different projects that I've done. And I think it's one thing to get up and convince yourself that it's time or that it's the right path or any of those things. Like that'll be the hardest thing. But then to go outside of you, like the responses that you get most of the time from either friends, family, community members, folks online, whatever that looks like in terms of your ecosystem, it's actually, I believe, more of a reflection of how they feel about themselves versus how they feel about you. So if someone's saying, "Oh, Janae, you could never do that," what they're really saying is, "I could never do that."
100%. Yeah. And then coming from being an introverted people pleaser literally my entire life. And then I'm like, hey, I'm going to post myself online 6 to 7 days a week. And it's hilarious how you just it becomes less abrasive. You just get used to it. And then
Yeah.
the haters that come along, you're just like, well, another one bites the dust. We're going to keep going.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you identify or identified as introverted because I think, after like seeing you like really embrace the season and experience all the things that you're putting together, and when we were hanging out in Texas a couple months ago, like I don't experience you as introverted at all.
So nice. Thanks. I I don't know. I think that in social situations versus business situations versus home life situations, you can kind of mold to be who you need to be for that group of people. And that goes into the people pleasing mode for me. And I'll go home after being in a social situation for a few hours and I'll just feel totally drained. But then I'm around
Mm.
people who are life giving people who speak life into me. And then I go home and I'm like, wow, I feel so much better. So I guess it just kind of depends on the people you're with.
Oh, definitely. I mean, environment and circumstances are everything. Speaking of, I can't help but notice in your background that you're hanging out in your wonderful area where you keep all your bags.
Yeah.
Talk to me about work from home because I know like your formal background is in nursing. And so like you're going to another location, doing the job and then coming back. A lot of either first-time business owners or business owners who come into the home and have an office in the home, they struggle with those boundaries. Has that been the case for you?
So interestingly enough, yes, I did work hospital and then pediatric clinic, and then I
Mhm.
ended up getting a work from home nursing job before I got pregnant. So
Oh.
I was at home for about a year before my daughter came along, and it was also a huge contributing factor to the postpartum depression, I'll say, just because when you feel isolated to start with, you have a hard time feeling less isolated later, unless you're willing to just take that next step and get out of your bubble. But I just wasn't ready for that. So being at home in my dining room with my office and bags everywhere, it's kind of been a reflection of like how this journey has brought me to this point. It's my home is my safe space, but now my home is also like where my family is thriving and we're able to enter this new chapter and journey together. And I literally don't know what I'm going to do when I have to grow out of this space because I love having my daughters see me do this here. And not to say they
Mhm.
won't go with me to a warehouse or whatever, but there's just something really special and really it almost makes you appreciate utilizing every single square foot that you have even more because every single strap that I have, every single bag that I have, the square footage that it takes up is just like one more piece of like my home that I am just it's my prized possession and I love everything about this home and I want my business to be I don't know my girls when they come home this is their refuge and their safe haven and it's like it's okay that my business is here too and they can see that mommy's happy here so I can be happy here.
That's amazing. I really love that. I think too, especially a lot of like work from home or like home office, like it's not, you're not like literally storing product. Like a lot of the folks that I know are like, providing services or doing work online and they aren't like actually physically storing stuff in their space. And so I can imagine that that provides probably some challenge too, right? Like you walk by something and then you get hit with a, oh yeah, crap, I forgot to send this, or oh yeah, I forgot to do whatever. And so I find that to be true. Like I pass by our office or my office to go into the kids' room here at our house and I'll like peek in or look in and be like, oh, wow, I forgot to do whatever. And like my mind immediately goes into that. But then we get like adorable moments where like our kids will run into the office and be like, I'm working like mom, or I'm going to run a business like mom, and all these things. And it's just like a really sweet full circle moment to know that like they don't care, like they don't mind that this is in their space. And I think that they see it.
But when you struggle with clutter, like clutter causes anxiety for a lot of people, and it does for me in a
Mhm.
lot of ways. And you would think that all of this just stuff in here would contribute to that anxiety, but it's the opposite because this is the part of the clutter that's bringing me joy. And I can like separate
Mm.
that in my mind where like this isn't clutter to me. This is what I'm pouring my passion into. Like the kids' toys
Mhm.
where yeah, that triggers me. But for some reason is not clutter. So I can see how if you're in the service-based business that might be a little overwhelming to have it at home, but
Mhm.
to to separate that in your brain is really cool. I've had to figure that out too because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put all this stuff. And it's literally like in our bedroom. We're going to have to expand to the garage, and it's going
Mhm.
to take up our home, but in a way that's going to benefit our family later on. You know,
Yeah. And it is really nice again to like have your kids see you building. Like Steve right now, he's fixing up an old Jeep Wagoneer and it's like occupying the garage. So we like do not use the garage for any of our cars, nothing. He has the Jeep in there. It's like totally disassembled. And Frank, our older son, is like loving pretending to help him like work on the car. And for like a lot of safety things and like inhalation, because he's like still very much in like the stripping things down phase. Frank can't be in the garage with him while he's doing that. But then while he starts rebuilding, so like in a month or two, when the weather starts to get a little bit nicer, Frank can like be in there and actually help him. And it's just done so much for his confidence. So I think he feels like a contributor in the home, which has felt really, really cool. And then the second thing is he's actually started like talking about more ideas. So, like, we'll see an old car, for example, when we're driving, and he'll be like, oh, we could fix that one up. Or, hey, why don't we build a garage? Or, and he keeps saying, like, welcome to Frank's Auto Body. Welcome to Frank's Auto Body. It is like the cutest thing ever. So, like, seeing their little minds expand off of like the nucleus of your idea is actually really, really sweet.
But if it's bringing you joy, it's going to stem off into your children. It's going to bring them joy too. So you just have to like bring joy into your home in a way that makes you confident and happy in the way that it benefits your family the best, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I love that. I think like it's just so, so incredible to have this backdrop, like motherhood and business ownership. And I want to talk about, if you're cool with it, you and Craig. Is this your guys' first like true venture together as a couple?
I would say yes and no. Craig has done multiple things in the past that he has rental homes. We've flipped homes. We've renovated our home together. So, and he owns a fireworks stand in the summer times. They've mainly been his projects, yes. But like to be able to work with your husband, it is a special relationship, but
Mhm.
there's a beauty in the grace that you give each other if you're willing to give each other grace, because
Yeah.
so firm in your expectations of the other person, you are literally not going to go very far. You
Mm-mm.
are going to be stuck in a corner that you're just going to resent each other for a very long time. If you cannot move that boundary out of the way, talk to each other as husband and wife, because as much as you want to be business partners, you do love that person and you want to
Yeah.
be an example to your children on how to have healthy conflict. So understanding that your expectations and your husband's expectations are different. However, if you have a person like my husband who's like, yeah, I'll take your direction as long as your direction is logical, then yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna work on the logical direction as much as I can because I'm an emotional direction. But for someone, I think most men are pretty logical thinkers. They don't want the emotion aspect in anything. For women, especially when we're in the designing of our elements here and there, we're like, oh, I just
Mhm.
feel this would be great. And I feel like this one right
Mhm.
awesome. And they're like, okay, but why? You need to tell me a logical explanation
Mhm.
why you think that's going to be good. That's how my husband works. So understanding that they can't read your mind and that you can't have that barrier of, you know, your feelings getting in the way, you got to
Mhm.
and understand that they need logic, you need communication. So how can you best meet?
Mhm. I think that's really spot on because I think Steve and me, oftentimes, even when we tackle like home renovation projects or even the Wagoneer, for example, there are just things that like I fully trust that he's handling. And then there are things that he fully trusts that I am handling. And I think that for our relationship is actually really great because I think we both want to bring skills to the table. And it would be really tough if there was one person in our dynamic that was running like the majority of any piece of the project. And I don't want to say it's always 50-50 because he is very, very clearly doing way more work on the Buccaneer than I have done. And I am obviously very, very doing so much more work on the business side of things than he has done. But like, I take his advice so seriously. Like, when I come to him with an issue in the business and I'm like, I really need your input here, he like really shows up and is like, I'm gonna help you through this situation. So I think like we both know that even though it is like majority someone else's project, like they're still very needed, I think is a really helpful thing.
Yeah, like we're entering into the business side of I know nothing about SEO. And so Craig's like, well, I love logic. So let me look at that. Like I could figure that out.
Hmm.
That's a simple equation that someone can get. Whereas my mind's like, okay, I
Hmm.
like posting on social media because that's more fun for me. So
Yeah.
it's just been one of those things where every task that comes that I can probably figure it out, but I just don't want to. But Craig's like, okay, well, I've got time. Let me look at it. So just giving yourselves the space to be like, I don't really want to try that today. Do you want to give it a go?
Yeah. I love that. Honestly, Jenna, you brought up a really great point. I think for folks listening, that would be just a helpful thing to digest or chew on is like sometimes the things we don't want to do in the business, even though the business needs it, and the same in motherhood, by just like declaring that this isn't our strong suit, it like invites somebody who is really, really excited to do that thing into the fold. And it like alleviates us of that stress and that pressure of like figuring it all out, even if we don't feel like we want to.
For sure. I mean, why would you want to spend your time doing something that you don't enjoy? I mean, I'm not at a spot where I can hire someone to do like my email building, whatever, my marketing, whatever, but I know that I can probably figure it out. But with our two minds, he might be better at something than me. So I'm like, okay, you take over. I want to spend my time
Yeah.
doing all right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's so important to like stay in your lane, you know? Like cuz it does, it wears away at you. And I think for business owners and for moms, it's really really common where you just like take on all the stuff because maybe you don't have the capacity to hire or maybe you're reluctant to delegate or outsource something inside of the home. And so I've like, spoke with moms here on the show that are, wanting to hire a house manager and they're struggling because they're worried about what their friends and family might say about someone else doing their laundry. Like that is a real thing. And delegation is not just a muscle that you build once and then never have to build again, or just like communicating even your boundaries or your excitement to do certain things. I mean, Janae, you're not, a monster for not wanting to do your SEO. I don't want to do my SEO. Someone else does my SEO.
Yeah, I know. But it's also like as soon as you let your pride down and you just
Mhm.
stop caring as much about how other people perceive what you're doing in your task list, like I'm not showing someone else my task list. It's in my brain. So why can't I give it
Mhm. Yeah,
the
can't agree more. This is amazing. I'm excited to hear what's on the horizon for Mother and Cub for the rest of the year. I know we talked about like taking it in stride and not planning too much, but is there anything that you're particularly excited about for 2025 and your first full year in business, which is exciting?
I'd like to hear what's on the horizon too. No, I think that's so cool. I would hope to see that I can expand, to have 10,000 followers on Instagram was a lofty goal, but I'm like, maybe I can do it. And maybe I can have 1,000 email subscribers. And maybe I can, it's all maybes in my head just because I don't want to let
Mhm.
myself down. But in reality, I do need a goal. And I think that my best goal that I can give myself is to just be consistent. Keep posting every
Mhm.
day. Keep making the content,
Mhm.
keep putting the effort into it, and then, it'll pan out. It'll be fine. So
I agree. I think consistency and a lot of what you've already talked about, like being aware and open about your boundaries, the things that you're good at and that you're not good at. I mean, this first year in business, you're already doing so amazing. And maybe like this first year is just enjoying, enjoying the journey and seeing how it goes.
because everybody's like, oh, well, the first 5 years of entrepreneurs, they don't 98% don't make it or whatever the stat is. And I'm like, honestly, that doesn't really like phase me because if I'm supposed to be here, I'm gonna be here. So
Yeah.
whether or not it pans out, it's not because of lack of trying. It's just because it
Mhm.
didn't work. And it's okay. So I'm
Yeah.
just excited to see where it goes from the aspect of like, this is bettering our home, this is bettering my marriage, this is bettering our family life. So I'm gonna keep going.
Yes, I love it. One of my favorite gals to follow in business, Cody Sanchez, she talks about how, yes, businesses fail in the first 5 years, but most of the reason why they fail is just because they stop trying.
Yeah, I
They're
believe.
they're just like, "Hey, listen, this is done." And I think there is such a beauty in building a business that you really enjoy and that feels like it fuels your creativity and supports your family and supports your life and all those things, because if it does all those things and checks all those boxes, then the likelihood of you giving up is actually really low, right? So, you find yourself in that small percentage of people who are successful in business, which is a great place to be.
And struggling with like the imposter syndrome of like, who the heck am I to even acknowledge that I'm gonna have an e-commerce business and make a product and all the things. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm actually doing it. I'm not an imposter anymore. I can do
Yeah.
more things. So
Yeah, I mean, new level, new devil, Janae. Every time you hit another like success platform in the business, you're going to have imposter syndrome about everything. And that's just like a universal. It's the same thing as like the mom guilt. Like it's gonna happen. Like I walked into a room a couple of weeks ago of a ton of super successful women entrepreneurs, and I was like, I don't belong here. Like I don't belong here. I don't think so. And then by the end of the event, after the like 2.5 days were over, I left with very lifelong friends. Like for sure, I know that these women are going to be in my life for a long time. And it was just incredible. And a lot of the women too, when they were sharing, they were like, I felt so intimidated walking into this room. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have like a $12 million business. Like, how are you intimidated by walking into this room? And so all I'm saying is it'll be with you like all the time.
we're all people. We all struggle with the same things. So if you can put that into perspective when you're nervous, it's like, well, I'm gonna be fine. I mean, other people look scary, but they're not. It's just you can't compare your first mile to someone else's end of the marathon.
Yeah, that's
So
right. That's absolutely right. Well, tell us. So I love the product that you've created. Obviously, many other mothers love the product that you've created. We've got an ecosystem of moms here who really just want to make their business and their life easier. Tell the folks listening how they can get their hands on a mother and cub bag.
Yeah, so we sell on Instagram and Facebook and the TikTok and the website and everything. It's motherandcub.com, and at Mother and Cub is my handle. And honestly, if you buy a bag, of course, I'm forever thankful, but I want more than anything for your life to be a little bit more joy filled with my bag, because that's all that I've ever prayed for over these bags. I want your day to feel like you can do it. And I know that that sounds so sappy, but it's all I've ever wanted out of this company. So thank you and side too. But at the end of the day, if you get a little bit of spark back in your day, then I know I did something right.
Oh, that is so amazing. Honestly, I have experienced like a really great product like in motherhood and how much joy it did bring our family and how much we've recommended it. And I got to see in person, like firsthand, one of the first bags that you had. And I just think what you're doing is so incredible. So if you're listening and you're transitioning from the early postpartum stage into the toddler stage, this is going to be the bag for you. I'm so excited. We'll put everything in the show notes, Janae.
So much. This has been so fun. And yeah, we're hopefully going to be expanding the line in the next, I hope the next year. So more products to come, hopefully.
So exciting. As we wrap up, anything you want to leave moms listening with who are in the thick of growing businesses and raising wildly connected families?
Well, gosh, you're not alone. Like it seems so cloudy and thick, and like there is no sun to be seen at all, but the clouds will part and it'll be okay. You will find your people, and you just have to be brave enough to try.
You are amazing. Honestly, thank you for this. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, for your vulnerability. I have just been so excited to follow along on your journey and
I'm hype,
see all
girl.
the lives. Oh my gosh, you know it. Everybody needs a champion in the first, like, little while just to be like, yeah, this is what you're doing. You're doing great. And I believe it, honestly, just seeing what you've put together in such a short time. I can only imagine that the rest of the year is going to be incredible. So thanks for making the time to join me on the show.
Thank you so much. So happy.